Sex addiction is such a powerful drug, it completely blinds you to other people's feelings. That's what James Franco said about the sex addiction that he's been battling since 2016. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let's break it down and let's pick up some of the crumbs from James Franco's story. Of course, the whole point is for you to have some takeaways so that you can understand how damaging pornography consumption is and sex addiction, hypersexuality in and of itself, and what to do to back yourself out of it. And we're going to use his example as a very powerful story of loss based on sex addiction. So let's start at not the very beginning, but the beginning of the story that I'm going to tell you about James Franco. So he just came out in an interview on Sirius XM, which I've actually shared on this channel, so you can look for it in the shared links. And he talked about how he has been struggling with a sex addiction since 2016, and that he actually not developed it, but kind of, leaned on it after he recovered from alcohol addiction. So he said he was sober from alcohol for 20 years. And alcohol addiction he developed in his younger years. And then he was 39 in 2016, and he found himself in a sex addiction recovery because for those 20 years of alcohol recovery, he leaned on sex. And in the interview, he says, not that interview, but in another interview that was written, he says that actually one of his sponsors from his alcohol recovery program basically endorsed sex between two consensual people and said if it's, consensual between two people and it feels good, go for it. So any alcohol addiction recovery specialist who knows about the addictive nature of sex would not offer that advice, because even though it may be consensual, you will see that it leads to a whole world of hurt for James Franco that he is now putting the pieces back together. Thank goodness, because I like him. So what he talks about is, in alcohol recovery, he started to go towards sex for the dopamine release in his brain. And he doesn't know this, but that's what he says. It's such a powerful drug. So sex internalizes the dopamine release that alcohol also can give on top of the alcohol. But so anyways, he just swapped out one addiction for another. Okay, so in 2016, he says he began sex addiction recovery, and he may have, but this is an important thing that I want you to realize. In 2016, he started working on an HBO series called The Deuce, which is about the pornography industry and how it came to rise up after legalization in the 1970s. And he's quoted as saying that for that show, he consumed pornography a lot doing his research. And he said he watched pornography back in the day, but that he did research for this show, The Deuce. So basically in 2016, if he's in sex addiction recovery, and if he's working with any good sex addiction recovery coach, that person would have told him there's no researching and being in a show that has to do with sex addiction or porn, because obviously that's a slippery slope. And we talk about the slippery slope here on the channel all the time, that you can't watch porn all the time if you are in a sex addiction recovery program. That's not a thing. You can't act out scenes that you've seen in porn if you're in recovery. Not a thing. And he says he was in recovery starting in 2016. He filmed that show 2016, 2017, and then this is when the hammer dropped in 2018. He started a film school, and one of his master classes was called Sex Scenes. And so he is allegedly, and there's allegations from many women that he would have them reenact or would act out sex scenes with him in front of a camera for the benefit of filmmaking. And so there was a class action lawsuit, and he actually paid heavy damages to the tune of $2.2 million to some of the women for sexual exploitation. And in the interview, James Cagle asks him, how were you not aware of the power dynamic instructor, not only just instructor in a school educational program, but James Franco, who's obviously a very popular, has an element of power over the student. And so, of course, students did things that they wouldn't have done if it wasn't James Franco and it wasn't their instructor. And so 2 of the women earned were given money for the pain and suffering. And another thing that was brought out about that 2018 lawsuit is that seemingly he didn't see the pain that he was causing the women, or that he had caused them. And he says in his quote that it made him not be able to see that other people have feelings. And in the interview, he talks about, I thought it was consensual, and so consensual was okay with me. And when he was asked, how could you not see this? His answer was, I wasn't clear-headed at that point in my life. And the non-clear-headedness is the narcissistic bubble of going back for more pleasure-seeking neurotransmitter dopamine. It pulls you back in. And so some people get pulled back into the screen. When people find what's in the screen in the world, when they can have people do it, they're pulled back towards that. So if he started his sex addiction recovery in 2016, he wasn't with the right people to be able to give him the right advice to keep him out of situations that would lead him towards a world of hurt. So what's the takeaway in this video? Because I want an action step and a takeaway for you. I want you to realize that porn informed his perspective and his worldview of how he had the dynamic to be able to treat women. And so he was accused of setting up that whole film school, which is now defunct, for the exploitation of women. And the reality is, he says he didn't do it, and he definitely, or hopefully definitely, didn't do it consciously, but this perspective informs his actions, and he may have done that subconsciously, naming one of his premiere classes as sex scenes and then having women act out sex scenes with him in multiple women. That is a distorted reality informed by pornography consumption. So the action step is, if you're in the screen, it's informing your reality and making it a distorted unreality. Come out of the screen. If you think about acting out anything you've seen in porn with other people, even if it's consensual and you are using them as objects for your pleasure, not connected relational sex that feels good and is enjoyed by both people, and both people are there for it in a whole person way, then it's time to pause and move in the opposite direction and to get into a program with the right people. Now, thankfully, I've created a program, and this isn't a sale. Somebody wrote to me, and I get comments on YouTube sometimes, you're just here making videos to sell your program. The reality is, I didn't even have a program when I started making the videos. I made the program to serve the people who need the programs, because people were being receptive to my videos. Thank goodness, because the world needs it. But the programs that I offer are built on what is proven in science to work, every piece. You can go to my website, drtrishleigh.com. You look at our method. You can see the method that I use. If James Franco was my client, I would have told him hell to the no about the deuce. Yes, you're going to lose some money, but guess what? In the end, you're going to save $2.2 million. You're going to save your reputation. You're going to save your integrity. That's what I would have told him. Spitting straight facts. So here's what I'm about to tell you. The loss was big for James Franco, and it might not be to the tune of $2.2 million for you, but the loss is big for you too. If you're wrapped up in any of this, even just what might seem like a harmless pornography habit that you don't think is hurting anybody, it's changing the way you see the world, which is changing your actions, which is leading to a slippery slope of loss. And the loss is your partner, or the partner you'll never find because you're in the screen, your family, your job, your friends, your dignity, your integrity, your mental health, your physical health. And physical health is erectile dysfunction. We know that so many people are struggling with it because of porn. So the loss is real for you, just as big as it was for James Franco. Thankfully, he's quoted as saying, you know what? I pride myself on fixing things when I break it, and I'm going to fix this. And he's working on himself. So if anybody knows James Franco, tell him to call me, because hopefully he's still not working with the person he was working with in 2016. He needs the right help. Give him my number. Give him my website. Okay, I'm here for you. Please listen, because spitting straight facts here. All right, if you want help on this journey, reach out to me, drtrishleigh.com. I have programs Small, medium, big, bigger, 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 to help you if you need help at the right level. Okay, until next time, control your brain or it'll control you.